Hey guys, welcome to Make Money Count. We're here for another week. Depressing week. A little bit depressing. We got
change.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a dirty word, the new dirty T word, which is tariffs today. The dirty T word. Yeah, some bad news.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what I want to do. I want to talk about first bond yields, how it's affected bond yields. Then I want to talk about how it affected the dollar. And then I want to go in to some projections as to how it's going to affect the Canadian economy. And then I want to talk about what actually is what's probably going to happen based on the people who are involved, because there's a bunch of really interesting people involved here, right? There is the Treasury Secretary that Trump appointed. There is the Commerce Secretary that he appointed. We got some comments from the previous Secretary of Commerce or Trade, Wilbur Ross, who worked under Trump under the previous administration. He made some comments. So like maybe we can infer something from this.
Right.
But as a blanket statement, if we're going to take this at face value, it's a big problem. Like it's a problem for so many different things. One report from, I forget who, some economist was like, this is a 2.5 to 3% hit to GDP.
Right.
Well, that's not encouraging because our GDP isn't even at 2.5 or 3% right now. So there's challenges ahead. There's challenges. What's the Chinese proverb? May you live in interesting times.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, these are interesting times. Okay, so first up, let's look at the bond yield because we love the bond yields. Bond yields dropped as soon as we started chattering about trade, and it became more clear that Canada was in the crosshairs. I don't know that we're so much in the crosshairs. I think that for sure Trump wants to negotiate on a bunch of things, and
we're in the crosshairs of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's been thrown out there. The first thing that's happening is there's a 25% tariff going on.
Right.
Then the question is, how do we get it removed, or how do we prevent it from going on? What actions can we take from now until there to get it removed? But make no mistake, in the face of such anemic growth in our country, adding a 25% tariff with our major trading partner, especially for Ontario, 70% of everything that we make goes there. We have nothing else really to rely on to keep our economy going. It certainly isn't construction starts.
Right.
So one thing that generally does help trade is when your dollar is really weak. So we might have that going for us. The only problem is if you're trying to combat inflation and you have to buy everything with a weaker dollar, it means everything you need to buy from outside of your country is going to come at a significantly higher price.
Right.
Therefore, inflation.
Increasing inflation.
Yeah. So pull up the Canadian dollar, US dollar chart. CAD/USD. I don't know how you guys usually read it. I like to look at it like this. This is how much you can buy of a US dollar with one Canadian dollar. So Justin's going to New York soon with Kelsey. I hope you guys have a great time.
We're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
If we can afford anything when we get there.
I would say buy your dollars today. It looks like today we saw a little bit of a
spike.
Jump, albeit not too much of a jump. But we're at 71.30 today. So listen, do you remember when it was par?
I do remember when it was par.
Yeah,
that was
like
a long time ago.
2011.
I mean, I was like
2011.
I wasn't going to New York at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going down. How low do you think it can go? Like, do you think that there's a bottom for this? I mean, there is obviously a bottom.
I don't know what holds it up.
Right.
If we get a 25% tariff levied on us, what economic fundamentals support the Canadian dollar being higher when the economy continues to contract? Like the only thing that will give it support will be the Bank of Canada not dropping interest rates.
Right.
Which will further weaken so it'll be like an artificial attempt to keep the dollar somewhat stable.
Right.
And that probably happens at like the 60 to 65%, 60 to 65 cent range.
Yeah.
But if left to go, yeah, like I don't know, it's bad. It's bad. Bad.
Yeah.
So bad because if you're looking for a mortgage option right now, you're definitely going variable.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, how will the fear of a plunging Canadian dollar impact the actions of the Bank of Canada, thereby maybe preventing some of the drops in the prime rate that we were expecting?
Right.
I don't think we're going to sacrifice too many, if any, rate cuts for the dollar.
Right.
Like I think we're going to a 2% overnight rate.
Yeah, like we don't have a choice.
I've been saying this for a long time now.
Right.
That is like probably, a 3.75 prime rate.
Right.
Right? From where we are right now at 5.95.
5.95.
Yeah. So 220 basis points, 225 basis points. It's coming off.
Right.
And it's just the sooner it comes off, the better.
Right.
The tariffs are a huge problem. But I actually believe there's a good way to spin this, and I'm gonna talk to you about it.
Okay.
So first, let's talk about how bad the tariffs are. Okay, tariffs are bad.
Terrible.
Well, for Canada, like really, really bad. There's a couple articles in the Globe and Mail. Pull up the first one. On January, this is what Trump said. On January 20th, as one of my first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop the invasion of our country. So, okay, like he is filled with bluster and he makes really bold claims. That's what got him elected. It's not just what got him elected. It's what got him total control over American politics, right?
Right.
The House, the Senate,
Yeah,
everybody
he
got
won everything.
Everybody got elected because of him. He knows it. He knows he has a very clear and strong mandate from the American people. So he's going to keep making statements like this. And what does this do when you start trying to negotiate with someone that makes a statement like this? You go hat in hand to discuss things with them. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't want to give it away too much, but the two people that he has hired to kind of be involved in this,
Brad Pitt and Susan Sarandon?
No, Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick.
I only say that because he's hiring all these crazy people for these jobs.
The last two people he would ever hire would be Democrats like that, right? Like Susan Sarandon is probably moving out of the United States because of him.
For sure.
But
with Ellen DeGeneres.
But so Scott Bessent was quoted while Trump was campaigning to say that tariffs are a loaded gun you bring to a table to negotiate, but never fire.
Right.
So this is an attempt to get what he wants out of Canada and Mexico. You can see clearly, like even in that statement, what he is saying is we are targeting Mexico because there's not a lot of fentanyl coming from Canada into the United States, and there's not a ton of illegals. We do have an open border with the United States, and like for sure that's an issue. But I think that the trade issues that he is going to focus on are going to be more related to like the automotive sector. There's like a kind of steel and aluminum issues. Yeah. There's dairy, which is surprisingly like a really big one I was reading about.
Like we export dairy to America.
And we have protective measures to safeguard our dairy industry, right? He wants open trade. If you can't, trade just can't be open one way or the other, right? So the tariffs come in and then you have to kind of react to it. And I think that another really big thing is defense spending.
Right.
He's going to want Canada to increase defense spending. If the tariffs take place, article number 2 that I pulled up here, if the tariffs take place, University of Calgary professor says the full weight of it is 2.6% in 2025. Canada's real GDP, a hit of 2.6% will plunge us into negative territory. Like it's huge.
Yeah. Basically, we'll be the Greeks.
The Greeks are doing way better.
Now.
Yeah. I don't know why you got to pick on the Greeks in this one. So now the thing we want to dive into is like, are there going to be tariffs, right? Are there going to be tariffs? I would say no.
Right.
Okay?
Same.
I would say no, but I would say that it depends on how we respond. So the people that are underneath Trump that are managing the tariff conversation are going to be managing it with a lot of different countries. Okay. China, that 10% additional 10% tariff is getting slapped on no matter what. That might even increase depending on the way China negotiates with Trump, right?
Right.
That's a really big point for his election in how he was going to be tough on China. In addition, tough on Mexico. Mexico has built ties with China, right? There is China-Mexico trade happening. China is in Central and South America. They are cognizant of the importance of Latin America and Central America to the future trade of the world. And building future inroads is counter to the dominance of the United States. So there are some bargaining points there. And again, Trump is going with a loaded gun to a negotiation.
Right.
Right. I heard an interview with Wilbur Ross, who was the previous Secretary of Commerce. And he said that he thought that kind of the pain points that existed before between Canada and the U.S. still exist. And that there are opportunities to gain kind of common ground with the United States, namely in space.
Mm-hmm.
Canada, the Canadarm. You remember that one?
Right. Yeah.
Like Canada has great space and kind of aeronautics engineers and engineering. And maybe there's an opportunity, I think, for us to kind of utilize that and maybe treat it as a part of our defense spending that he wants to see. He wants to see, remember, all NATO members increase defense spending as a percentage of GDP.
Right.
I guess the only thing that we could say is helping us is the fact that our GDP is going to be dropping. So an amount pegged to GDP for defense spending will be reducing because
it'll be negative.
Well, not negative, but like our economy is just not performing the way it should be right now. So issues for the Americans: softwood lumber, dairy, defense spending, like these things will need to get worked out.
Right.
It's not fentanyl.
Yeah.
And I said this, I don't know if I said it on here, but I said this, I've been saying, like, if I were the prime minister right now, and I know this probably,
I feel like the country would be in better shape.
I don't know. Listen,
Just
for
saying.
sure, I think that if Oscar, Theo, or Nico were my 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and 6-year-old, if any of them were the prime minister right now, the country would be in better shape.
Yeah.
Not to mention this GST debacle, which we'll talk about next. But I think, like, and this might not be popular because it's seen as kind of kowtowing to Trump, but you have to, right? Like, again, you want to apply Sun Tzu to this, you have an opponent that will most certainly defeat you.
Right.
You cannot go to war and antagonize the United States, whatever format that war is, trade war, otherwise, right?
Yeah.
So you need to find common ground.
100%.
And I think if there's anything we've seen, Trump can be placated, right? There is a way that I think you saw in the previous administration that sycophants were rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
And if the end goal is to benefit your country and your economy at a time when it is perilously close to a real serious recession. And remember, a recession isn't something that just like starts and you could pull it back from the brink, right? A recession is something that once it gets
avalanche.
going,
Yeah.
it's stinking thinking.
Yeah.
Right? We're in stinking thinking mode right now.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so what did I say? I said, if I was the Prime Minister of Canada, I would invite Donald Trump to come have a nice dinner. When he arrived, country would be wide open for the guy. I would rename Lakeshore Donald Trump Way.
Yeah.
I would show him the kind of JFK treatment that a lot of countries gave JFK, like I don't know how many roads are named after JFK, but everywhere in the world,
Yeah.
every major city that I've ever been to, including like Monrovia, Liberia, there is a John F. Kennedy road, and it is a substantial and significant road in any country. So there was like, it was like generally accepted that this young, charismatic leader was going to be great for the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I would name a street after the guy. I mean, you could change it afterwards.
Yeah, when he leaves.
But I think that like leaning into this relationship is the most important thing Canada can do. And I think that if you start off with too much of an adversarial or antagonistic stance, it's not going to get you anywhere. And the other thing, like this, I don't know what a better way to say it, but like the way that Trudeau engages in diplomacy, which is kind of like smiling sound bites of like, yes, the future president and I spoke, and we believe that there are meaningful conversations, and we both believe in the importance of Canadian and U.S. trade relationships, and I believe the right thing will be done. Like, that's just bullshit.
Right.
Right? So we got to stop with the soundbite bullshit. Trump's not doing that.
Right.
Right? Trump's negotiating. He's a great, for whatever else he is, he's a great negotiator. You know what makes people really good negotiators?
What?
Having all of the chips to negotiate with. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I was in the Bahamas playing poker over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You know what makes a really good poker player?
Having all the chips.
Yeah.
Having all the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because number one, it's easier to bluff when you have all the chips because everyone's worried,
Yeah.
right? You can push people out of hands.
Mm-hmm.
You are seen as probably, in my case, for sure, I'm seen as a better player than I am
Right.
because I have all the chips.
Yeah.
Right now, Trump's the best player at the table because he's got all the chips. He can bluff anybody out. And he has a cheering section behind him because he was voted president so unanimously that they gave him every piece of the federal government. So in the end, okay, I think we got to be careful. I think we got to placate our neighbors to the south. I think we got to find some common ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got to do what we can to avoid this 25% tariff, which I don't like. I think the odds are that there are fewer steps for Canada to get that tariff removed
Than there is for Mexico.
than there is for Mexico.
Yep.
And I think we got to make it so that, like, listen, here's the other thing. Like, for sure, Trump has made a name for himself in business and in politics as someone that is very comfortable fighting battles on many fronts.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody really likes to have opponents everywhere, right? And even in Trump's past administration, you kind of saw if Trump found support somewhere or common ground somewhere, like with the Prime Minister of Japan,
Right.
then that country was treated favorably.
Right.
And he spoke highly of them. And that's what you've got to key in on.
Mm-hmm.
Japanese aren't stupid people,
Yeah.
right? The Japanese will bow. They will be respectful. They have their own goal. They want to accomplish things, but they don't have that ego that's going to stand in the way of doing what's best and what's right for their country.
Right.
Canada has to have no ego.
Yeah.
That's how we get through this. Zero ego. Let's be friendly. Let's find some common ground. Canada has the opportunity to be the North American version of Japan.
I would love that. I think we all would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I have to say about it. I mean, for sure, I'll have more to say at some other point in time. But, yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is when you say,
As always,
yeah.
don't hit subscribe unless you want to, in which case we would love that.
Yeah, we really secretly, we would love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't have to.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is telling you to do it. And I don't want to tell you what everyone else is doing. In the meantime, please call your bank. If you have a fixed rate mortgage, please call your bank and say, what does it cost me to break this mortgage right now? How do I get a variable rate mortgage? Can you answer some questions for me? How's my payment calculated? What's the rate that you're comparing my mortgage against in order for me to break that penalty? And what's the best you can do on a variable rate mortgage? And do it soon. And if you'd like, call one of our salaried employees and they can walk you through the process. And I'm sure if we do it sooner rather than later, we will save you tens of thousands of dollars.